Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our honors program virtual webinar. Before we get started, we'd like to go through a few housekeeping items so you know how to best participate in this evening's event. First off, all lines are on mute. If you experience any technical difficulties at any point in the program, please feel free to use the chat feature in the bottom control panel, and I'll try my best to help address the issue. And then also later in this program, we will be having an open Q&A. If you have any questions, please use also the Q&A function at the bottom control panel to enter your question and to enter the queue. Now I'd like to hand things off to our Chief of Staff, John Garelick, for the welcome and introduction. John?
Thank you so much, Whitney. Good evening again, everyone. As Whitney mentioned, I'm Jonathan Garelick, Chief of Staff to A.G. Plotkin, and also serving as your host for tonight. We're really thrilled to be hosting our information session for the 2025 honors program cycle. Our application period for the program opened on August 28th, and it will close on October 13th. That means we're right in the sweet spot for all of you to learn more about the program and have time to sharpen up your applications before they're due. We're especially fortunate tonight to be joined by Attorney General Plotkin, who you will hear from in just a moment. And General, I know that you have another commitment tonight, so we appreciate very much you making time for us before you have to sign off. In addition to A.G. Plotkin, you will hear from some other senior leaders from our office. Angela Kai, our incoming Executive Assistant Attorney General and current Deputy Solicitor General. Jeremy Feigenbaum, the office's Solicitor General. And you'll also get to hear from a panel of some of our current honors program members about their experiences in the program. And as Whitney mentioned, at the end of the program, we will reserve time for discussion and to hear any questions that you have about the program and the application period. But first, we're going to hear from A.G. Plotkin. As the state's 62nd Attorney General, A.G. Plotkin has increased public safety, stood up for the rights of New Jerseyans, and combated corruption to bolster the integrity of government services. A.G. Plotkin has led actions to protect the civil rights of New Jerseyans, stood up for reproductive rights, and has used every tool in the toolbox to combat the plague of gun violence. Most importantly for this group, he has been a champion of the honors program, dating back to his time as chief counsel for Governor Murphy. During his time as AG, he has overseen a significant growth in this program, securing additional funding and bringing in a record number of honors program attorneys in 2023 and again in 2024, just a couple weeks ago. Without him, there would be no honors program. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the 62nd Attorney General of New Jersey, Matthew Plotkin.
Thanks, John, and thanks everybody for getting on. Sorry, my camera's being funky. I really appreciate you guys getting on and your interest in the honors program. As John said, this is something that I'm very proud of. We have grown it considerably. I doubled it in size last year, and that's because of the remarkable success of what the Honors Fellows have been able to accomplish. And you'll hear from several tonight, as John said. The Honors Program is really unlike any program, frankly, in the country. You have the ability to come in and work on priority areas across the range of the authority that we have in the office. And we have some of the broadest authority of any Attorney General's office in the country, both criminal and civil authority. And so you think about the type of work that we do here, whether it be antitrust or civil rights or reproductive rights or combating gun violence or tackling public corruption, or sexual and domestic violence policy, or working with our Solicitor General's office, which is at the forefront of what we do in our state Supreme Court, the federal courts, and across multi-states, coordinating amicus strategy with offices like ours across the country. And I could go on and on down the priority list, which you probably have and we'll hear more about. But I would just say a couple of things about our office. First of all, I think early on in your career, you really want to get experience wherever it is that gives you two things. It allows you to work on work that's meaningful to you personally, meaningful to people throughout wherever you're working, as well as to work in an environment where you get direct hands-on experience and can grow as an attorney. And I think it's safe to say that this program gives you both. I think you'll hear from our honors fellows, many of whom I've worked with directly, they're working on some of the most important matters that we have in our department, and they're getting direct hands-on experience helping lead those matters early in their career while getting the supervision and training that you want from committed and dedicated public servants. So in that sense, the ability to get that experience across two different priority areas is really unique. We've had people who do environmental enforcement work and then go and do public corruption. And then almost all of our honors fellows have stayed beyond the 2-year commitment. The very few that have left have actually gone on to clerkship and hopefully will continue their careers in public service or wherever they go. The experience they have here, I believe, will help them in their career. But the other thing I would say is that I've had the privilege of working at every level of government, from federal to local, and for the better part of the last decade here at the state level. And I really believe that this is the most impactful level of government, because what we do is big enough that we can move the needle, whether we act on our own. For instance, when we sue the largest oil and gas companies for climate deception, one of the largest cases ever filed, when we act across state lines, like when we led the lawsuit against Meta, or the DOJ antitrust, in partnership with DOJ, the antitrust suit against Apple, or in some of the policy changes that we're doing here in New Jersey. We can move the needle, but we're also local enough that I've pretty much been to every community throughout our state, and we know the impact that our work has for the 9.3 million people that live here, and in some cases for the 300 plus million people who live in the United States of America. And that's not an exaggeration. We are, for instance, in a couple of weeks going back to New Orleans to litigate on behalf of DACA recipients. And had we not stepped in 2018 to do that work, DACA would not exist today. And so we're able to really have a national impact, and certainly a statewide impact, while still being grounded in the reality that our residents live. And I love that balance. And I think that's a way to really stay motivated about your work, to understand the impact of your work. And frankly, that's true whether or not you're from New Jersey. We've had honors fellows from across the country. We've certainly had people from New Jersey, but we've had people who have never lived in New Jersey, including people who have never lived in New Jersey and have chosen to stay beyond the 2-year period of the honors program. And so, I think this is an incredible program. I'm a huge supporter of it. As John said, I was around since its inception, and I believe there really isn't a program like it anywhere in the country. And if you want to have a great experience right out of law school, right out of a clerkship or a fellowship, I think you should strongly consider applying to our program. And you're going to hear more why from our exceptional team of attorneys, from Angela and Jeremy, and from some of our honors fellows. So I thank you guys for getting on. I'm really sorry I can't stay for the whole program, but I'm just very, very excited for your interest, and I'm excited to hopefully have the chance to work with you all in the years to come. John, I'll turn it back to you, and thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, General Blacken. We really appreciate your time tonight. Our next speaker, as you heard, is Angela Cai. Angela is currently, but not for long, our Deputy Solicitor General. And at the end of the week, Angela will be formally assuming the role of Executive Assistant Attorney General, which in this office is the third ranking official. And she will be overseeing, among other things, the civil litigation portfolio, as well as some of our civil divisions, including the Division on Civil Rights and our statewide Affirmative Firearms Enforcement Office. So I'm going to turn it over to Angela, and she will let you know about what you can expect out of the program from the civil side, and also from her work in the OSG land. Angela, floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Before I get into the program, I'm just very excited that so many of you are with us tonight, and sort of on a personal note about why I think it's so important for you to consider public service, and through the honors program here, which is a great way to do it. I was in private practice for several years before I joined this office. And I think that had I known about something like the honors program when I was in law school, I may have seriously considered it. And I think that is because what I've seen here at every level, but especially the work that the honors program members that I have personally worked with. I think back to when I was, graduating law school and a first-year associate at a law firm. I would have probably traded a lot to have those opportunities. And so I think as you're thinking about all the career options that are available to you and what you want to do when you graduate from law school, I think what you're about to hear, especially from the current program members, I would pay attention, because I think you should be thinking about whether or not those are the kinds of opportunities that you would be excited about. And I bet you that they very much are. And you're here today probably because you are interested in public service. And I certainly took the career path that I eventually did because I was also, and continue to be, really drawn to public service. I was partly raised by my grandparents, both of whom were lifelong public servants, and it was always important to me to find myself back in this area. And I can tell you sort of in a more concrete way, and I'm sure you're hearing from other potential employers what you might be doing, but here are some actual things that honors program attorneys have worked on with me directly. So there have been honors program attorneys on nearly all of the cases in which we are defending state firearm safety laws against challenges brought by others who are trying to nullify those laws. And so that includes challenges to the assault weapons law, challenges to our ban on 3D printed firearms and components, challenges to the laws about where you can bring guns into the state. Those are all cases that were built by, in terms of the defense, by a team of attorneys, including honors program members. Outside of that space, there are plenty more. So honors program attorneys have helped shape the litigation successful so far in defending the Temporary Worker Bill of Rights, recently passed by our legislature, the enforcement of consumer protection laws against, among others, pregnancy centers and firearm manufacturers that have misled, may have misled the public and may have engaged in misconduct, and representing the state in, allowing those investigations to go forward, the prosecution of public corruption cases, and as the general mentioned just now, representing the New Jersey in nationwide litigation, including in environmental cases in support of EPA regulations, protecting LGBTQ students in Title IX protections by the federal government, and of course, defending Dreamers in the ongoing DACA litigation. And those are some of the most important issues that an attorney could be working on. And I think that to be able to work on those litigations on the ground level as someone who is straight out of law school or a clerkship, I think is just an amazing opportunity. So you'll hear more from the folks who are doing it now, but it's not just the kinds of topics, but also the substantive things that you'll be doing and the skills that you'll be developing. Honors program attorneys have, of course, stood up in court, authored briefs, drafted legislation that have become law, taken depositions, done witness interviews, all the things that you think about when you think, oh, this is what a lawyer is supposed to be doing. And of course, there's all the other aspects of lawyering that goes into it too. And you'll have the guidance and support of seasoned attorneys in the section that you'll be placed with to guide you along. And it's a great team. All of them are great teams, and you have a great team here that will support your work. So with that said, I will turn it over to my dear colleague, or actually, let me turn it over back to John, who will introduce Jeremy next.
No, thanks so much, Angela. Really appreciate it. Our next speaker is our Solicitor General, Jeremy Feigenbaum. And I had the distinct pleasure of watching Jeremy argue in the United States Supreme Court, where he secured a unanimous victory for the state in a dispute involving our waterfront. Unanimous victory, obviously not easy to come by these days. So Jeremy is going to tell you all about the kind of work that he and his Solicitor General team oversee. And he has also, by virtue of his position in the office, gets to get involved in some of the most significant work that honors program members also are involved with. So Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. And thank you, everyone. So it's always dangerous to follow Angela because she always knows more about what she's talking about than I do. but I'm going to hit a couple of very high level points about as you think about the next stage in your career, as you think about where you want to spend your time working and why it should all be in the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General. And, my favorite love in the Solicitor General Fellowship. So first, wherever you go, whatever you're thinking about, I hope it's our office. You'll look at other places in your life, but wherever you end up going, you should be asking of any possible job, what are the kinds of cases you'll be working on? And what are the sorts of things you'll get to do on those cases? Because anyone that doesn't have good answers to you about those two things isn't really selling you the kind of job that you should be excited to launch your careers into, whether you're coming straight out of law school or coming straight out of a clerkship. There are two things, even before we get to the SG Fellowship, that I think are really special. One, if you're thinking about government, and by virtue of being here, you're thinking about government, you should think about state government. And there's a lot of reasons why. But one of the things that state government does that I think is so special is that states are active and states are doing things. And then the people who get to work within states are just to have outsized responsibilities compared to what might happen in other offices or large bureaucracies or the federal government, et cetera. And so, among other things, states are always legislating, states are always trying their hand at new regulations. We're always suing some new big company, whether it's the environmental defendants that the Attorney General was talking about, or some of the gun companies that Angela was talking about. There's always a new interesting angle that a state is trying somewhere in this country. And if you want to be part of, the laboratories of experimentation, states are an incredible place to spend your time. And because states tend to have smaller offices, there's a bigger outsized opportunity to take on more. So in some other offices, you might just be the person that works on one bill for years, or you might just be the person that works on a regulation or two. But as you'll hear from our honors program attorneys, who you'll hear from right after me, you get to try a lot of different things when you're in the honors program, whether that's two different things across your 2 years, or you tried your hand at doing something that was regulatory facing or enforcement work or defensive litigation or constitutional litigation, et cetera. So you get interesting cases, you get good opportunities in a state that's really active. And then, not for nothing, I think you should look at states that have honors programs, particularly New Jersey, because it's an easier way to launch yourself earlier in your career. It gives you better experience earlier in your career, and that's something we really focus on with the honors program, whether that's working on a trial, working on an appellate brief, getting oral argument opportunities, what have you. That's something that we really think about here. And as you'll see from the forms when it comes to applications, you also get a chance to focus on what you're most interested in. You get to check off what are your priority issues. Hard to do that in a lot of different job applications, to pick off within government the thing you're most passionate about, but it's a feature of the honors program. Okay, so that's what you should ask in your jobs. That's why you should come to a state. That's why you should come to New Jersey. That's why you should do our honors program. Now, for me, the fifth thing, here's why you should think about the Solicitor General Fellowship. You should think about the Solicitor General Fellowship for two main reasons. One, if you like constitutional law and appellate litigation, it's a great opportunity for you. Everyone in our Office of Solicitor General, which is about a 9-attorney office strong group, is a generalist. We do civil and criminal, we do state and federal court. We work on procedural issues like standing and abstention. We work on substantive issues like civil rights, environment, Second Amendment, First Amendment, Dormant Commerce Clause, constitutional this, statutory interpretation that. So if you like being a generalist, there's something for you, and there's a lot of something for you. There's a lot of really fun, interesting cases percolating at any time. And at any given time, we have two fellows, one who's in their second year of the fellowship, one who's in their first year of the fellowship, working very closely with the Solicitor General, Deputy Solicitor Generals, and Special Assistants who make up the team of the office. So it's a very small office environment. You get to know each other super well, and you work on this kind of high-intensity constitutional appellate litigation. So I just want to give two examples of the sorts of things that folks get to do generally in the honors program and in the Solicitor General Fellow that I think is very attractive. We have, as John mentioned, had two cases at SCOTUS in recent years that we had a chance to argue in our department, a case called Penn East Pipeline and a case called New York versus New Jersey. We lost Penn East 5-4. We won New York versus New Jersey 9-0. So I like to say that when you add it together, we've actually won 13-5, even though no one actually aggregates the numbers that way. But it's a good way to think about it because that's how we claim the win. So on all of those cases, we had honors program attorneys and Solicitor General fellows. So right out the gate, we had people who were 6 months out of law school, 1 year out of law school, 1.5 years out of law school, working on merits briefs in SCOTUS, because that's the kind of program that we're running, where people get early and immediate opportunities to do that sort of thing. So whether it was my fellow Nathaniel or the honors program attorney Dan Resler, both of them were involved working super closely together with me on New York versus New Jersey and Penny's pipeline cases Angela worked on as well. So just opportunities to get that kind of early SCOTUS litigation. And then the other vignette I would share is, Angela mentioned we have a lot of Second Amendment cases, civil rights cases, environment cases, kind of the whole gamut in the SG's office, working broadly with the honors program in the department. But one of our favorite cases that we really love working is that New Jersey is the state leading in the nation defending DACA, defending Dreamers. And we are in Texas and we are in the Fifth Circuit regularly at oral arguments defending DACA. And so in 2 weeks, I'll be heading to New Orleans to do oral argument in the Fifth Circuit to defend the validity of DACA, to explain why, despite a lawsuit brought by Texas against the Biden administration, DACA is here to stay and DACA is lawful. And I'm going to be bringing just one attorney with me. I'm bringing Viviana Hanley with me, who finished her fellowship 3 days ago and is staying as a special assistant to me, a more senior management title, having finished her fellowship. And the two of us are heading down to New Orleans together and working directly on this case and gearing up for oral argument. So that's the kind of example that I want to use to show that we have small teams, effective teams, and teams where even though you're junior, Viviana is 4 years out of law school, having clerked and then come to this office. She's the one attorney that's going to be heading with me to New Orleans as we gear up for the DACA oral argument. So whether you like gun safety, whether you like public corruption work on the criminal side, whether you like defensive Second Amendment work, whether you like enforcement of our gun safety laws, whether you want to do consumer protection, civil rights, environment, labor, reproductive health care, and access. There are so many issues, if you're passionate about, that you can be on small teams, getting real experience and being a leader within your cases. So that's all I got. I'll be sticking around to answer any questions, but let's get over to the honors program folks who've actually lived it and can tell you even more about how we work.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And Jeremy's right. It's time to hear from our honors program members. So Sarah and Emily and Giancarlo, you guys can flip your cameras on. Thanks. And so we want to hear from each of you, and we'll just in no particular order. We'll start with Giancarlo, go to Emily, and then go to Sarah. If you want to introduce yourself, let people know where you came from, your school, your home state, your hometown. Let everyone know what honors program year you joined the office in, and your current and if applicable, your former assignments, and let folks know what you've been doing. And then after that, we will move into some logistics on the program and Q&A. So Giancarlo, you've got the floor.
Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. I'm Giancarlo Piccinini. I'm a 2023 honors attorney here at the New Jersey Attorney General's office. Came off of a clerkship in the appellate division before I joined the office, and I'm a Seton Hall Law grad and native to New Jersey, first generation American. And I think the point I want to try and make in my 5 minutes here is that this experience really is second to none. You heard it from the general himself. You heard it from our Solicitor General. This experience is unlike any other, and I have a lot of friends I graduated law school with. I'm familiar with experiences they share with me, whether it's in big law, public defender's offices, prosecutors' offices, small law firms, you name it. The caliber of work you're doing here, the gravity of the work you're doing here, and the people you work with here, I think make this experience incredibly worthwhile. And so on the substance, the work you're doing, as many have said already, is cutting edge. And for me, my interest coming into the office was firearms enforcement work. And we are literally on the cutting edge with the statewide affirmative firearms enforcement office, enforcing our firearms accountability statute, which is the first of its kind in the nation. And that tees up also the gravity of the work. It's real meaningful work. So it's not only personally fulfilling for me, but it actually has impact in the state. Impact not only for myself, but for the people I call my friends and family and my neighbors who live here alongside me. And so waking up every morning and knowing that what I'm doing is having a real effect in their lives, the people that I love, is special and is something that I think is really worthwhile. And then lastly, also the people. You heard from some of my colleagues already, and I think you can see these are brilliant, kind, seasoned attorneys who are ready to challenge young lawyers and to instill in them everything they have learned. And that is an opportunity, I think, that is incredibly special and rare. I think you heard also from our Deputy Solicitor General, soon to be Executive Assistant Attorney General, Angela Kai. That's exactly what we have here. We have honors attorneys working alongside attorneys who have so much to teach. And as honors attorneys, we have so much to learn. And the experience, I think, that we get to do that through, again, is second to none. So for me personally, that includes drafting legal pleadings, developing litigation strategy, executing litigation from its inception, coordinating multi-state amicus strategy, and it goes on and on. Affirmative litigation, as I mentioned, in our firearms space. I'm also involved in our antitrust litigation alongside DOJ and 19 other states against Apple. And that also dovetails some defensive litigation that I'm involved in also, firearms defensive litigation, some consumer protection defensive litigation in both the district courts and the circuit courts. And then on top of that, in special litigation specifically, multi-state amicus briefing, whether it be in select district courts, like this past summer, we were involved in amicus briefing in 9 federal district courts across the country when after the Biden administration released its new Title IX rules, extending Title IX protections on the basis of gender identity. A few states, select states, challenged that law on various bases, constitutional grounds, statutory grounds, in many, like I said, 9 federal districts across the South. And so my team and I were getting admitted and PhD'd and contacting local counsel in all of these courts and getting in there and defending nationwide students who we thought were entitled to those Title IX protections. And that amicus briefing isn't just in the district courts, it's in the circuit courts, whether here in New Jersey, in our circuit or other circuits around the country, and the US Supreme Court. I've had the opportunity to contribute a small piece, but still seeing my pen in a brief submitted before the Supreme Court was life-changing for me. And I could go on and on about this, but I want to hand it over to my other colleagues. All I have to say is I have not yet in the past year of being here come to work and have regretted my choice of choosing to come to this office. And I hope that maybe I'll see you here one day. So with that, I will pass the baton to my colleague, Emily.
All righty. So G and I came in at the exact same year, at the exact same time, to do special litigation. He's up in Newark. I was down in Trenton, and I had no idea what was going on, except that I was like rabid for firearms work. And I had to wait until December until we could actually do a firearms enforcement case. But that was really great because then I got to broaden my horizons, right? Like Giancarlo was saying, we do multi-state work. So I was working on cannabis reform and reproductive rights and, those sorts of coordinations. We had the opportunity to watch Angela argue in front of the Third Circuit in Philadelphia. We had other opportunities to watch other solicitors argue elsewhere and in front of the New Jersey Supreme Court. So it's been great. I did my first year with Special Lit, and now I'm with SAFE. So I'll leave the majority of the rest of this to my SAFE experience. But I'm originally from Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, where we're kind of constantly up against the legislature in terms of getting anything done gun reform wise. So when I went to law school at Temple, I joined the Law and Public Policy program, and then the pandemic happened. And it was a very unique opportunity where basically all summer I was just mulling over, how are we going to close the ghost gun loophole? And one of the first opportunities that came my way to actually do something about it post law school was the AG's honors program. But I had already signed up for a clerkship. So if you were in my shoes where you're like, oh, this is so exciting, but okay, I have a prior commitment, I think the clerkship actually really, really helped me gear up my legal research and writing to where it needed to be. Because when you're in the honors program, it's not that like the honors program is going to teach you what to do, right? You are the attorney. Like you are going to come in and learn the skills and be a full, attorney on the job. So after I did 1 year in the Superior Court Criminal Division, it was a bit jarring to come in and learn civil, but those 3 months leading up to our actual first complaints with SAFE was a really good time to like learn civil skills, and I feel much more, I guess, rounded. I really only knew about the criminal aspect of firearms enforcement. It was nice to sort of get more tools in the toolbox. So my experience overlaps a lot with Giancarlo for the last year. Now I'm 3 days into my second year with SAFE. And it's been completely different being from, like, I guess, almost a client perspective, where it's much more of, we're investigating, we're getting discovery together, we're still doing like directing legal strategy, but it's much more of, hey, I have this legal question, like, can we see what Split thinks about this, and sort of, can we push the envelope even further? It's sort of like a different but same policy perspective. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been very enjoyable, and I feel very fortunate to be this young in my career and already having both litigated and now getting more of a policy focus on this topic that I've been passionate about for so long. So I'm going to now turn it over to our esteemed colleague, Sarah.
Thanks, guys. So, hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Costa. I was born in New Jersey, but mostly grew up in upstate New York. And I went to Minnesota Law School and came to the Attorney General's Honors Program in 2022, immediately graduating. So my work as an honors attorney has really allowed me to work on enforcement actions with an attorney general whose agenda really aligns with my commitment to the public good and public welfare, which is really important to me. So for those of you coming from a public interest perspective, that is really salient in the work that we do every day. For myself, also in the consumer protection section. So I'll talk a little bit about that, because as Giancarlo and Emily have hinted, when you start as an honors attorney, you basically hit the ground running as a line deputy, as a staff person, as an attorney from day one. And in 2 years, I have touched pretty much every step of litigation and investigation at the trial court level. So I'll just go through some of the stuff that I've been able to do, which is pre-litigation investigations. I've had very large investigations on topics like financial fraud and predatory lending that are really expansive and also go directly to consumer harm, which I'm really passionate about. One of the really cool things about working at a state attorney general's office is that you have pre-filing subpoena authority. So you are able to actually issue investigative subpoenas and collect documents and do that full investigation without having a lawsuit, which is a really, it's a power not to be understated. Especially as like a new attorney, you get to do that kind of work while not even necessarily filing a lawsuit just yet. I've drafted and filed a complaint in a case that was a consumer fraud case, but also related to firearms, related to the sale of firearms in violation of the hazardous products regulations into New Jersey. I have appeared in court in case management conferences. I've done motion practice and oral argument, including working on the drafting of a motion for summary judgment. I actually have done quite a few depositions this year, both defending and conducting depositions. I actually had a trial and a deposition in the same week. So consumer fraud is really high volume, but it's really exciting. It's the kind of area that touches on so many subjects that are completely disparate. We work on everything from firearms to reproductive rights to environmental work. A lot of the bread and butter of our cases do allow someone like me, a brand new attorney, to have a lot of ownership over the litigation of those cases, like home improvement contractors and auto dealerships. I think there's a lot to be said as a new case that you can get your arms around, but still have ownership and decision-making power over. And I've been really fortunate to have a number of those kinds of cases. And also, I'll say, working at a 4-week trial over the course of the summer with under the guidance of experienced attorneys and learning from them, watching them, being able to actually conduct direct and cross-examination myself as part of that trial team was just like an invaluable experience that cannot be understated. So many attorneys go their entire careers without being able to do that. And so I'm just really grateful that I'm honing those hard skills and doing it in an office that aligns with my values as a person who's really committed to public interest. You don't always get that when you're coming right out of law school. The clients, in a lot of firms, the clients' interests are going to rule the day. And I feel really grateful that as a young attorney, we get to do that kind of work and develop those hard skills and still feel like we're working for the people of New Jersey. And so, yeah, I'll turn it over back to John. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Giancarlo, and to Emily as well. So we're going to go through very quickly the logistics to make sure that folks have this information, and then we will open it up to Q&A. So as a reminder, the application period closes on October 13th. The eligibility is for third-year law students and those in the final year of other graduate law programs, such as an LLM. It's open to judicial clerks who are going to complete their clerkship by September 2025 and who began the clerkship immediately following graduation from law school or fellowship program. And the program is open to individuals who will complete a fellowship by September 25, which began immediately following graduation from a law school or clerkship. When you apply, you will have the option to apply for one or more subject matter areas. Those subject matter areas are listed on our website, and you can choose as many or as little as you want there. You rank them in order, so please think about what you really want to do and act accordingly. The placements go into one of the divisions within our large department. Typically, that's the Division of Law, which has basically the largest law firm in New Jersey, all of our civil attorneys, the Division of Criminal Justice has our prosecutors and sworn law enforcement officers, the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, which prosecutes corruption cases and also has responsibility for investigating fatal police encounters, among other things, and our Division on Civil Rights. The program is a 2-year commitment. It'll begin September 2025, and so it'll end in September 2027. As you heard the AG mention, we very much like to have people continue on with us, like Sarah, after the commitment is over. But when you do apply for the honors program, and if you accepted a position, it is a 2-year commitment. We do make opportunities available to rotate to other parts of our department in the 2nd year of your program. You heard a little bit about that from Emily and from Sarah as well. And so think about that when you're applying for the program as well. Our interview timelines, so we aim to begin interviews in late October. That is, as you might imagine, quite a process and usually takes us to December before we are able to extend offers, and that oftentimes carries into January due to the holiday period. As with everything these days, the most available information is on our website, njoag.gov/honors. There's an FAQ on the page, in addition to more detailed information about some of the things that I just went through. So that takes us to our Q&A. And we have a few questions kind of in the queue right now. We will take as many questions as we can until 7 o'clock. So if you are thinking about a question, drop it in and we will do our best to get to it. First question is how long we would recommend the statement of interest be, and how similar it should be for a cover letter or to a cover letter. So our instructions mandate that the statement of interest is below 1,000 words. That's because we need to have some kind of brevity to our application packets. But really what we want to hear about in the statement of interest is why you want to work in our office and what your interest is in public service. So hard to give a definitive answer as to how long that should be, but really we want something more than a general, like, I'd like a job. It really should be talking about public service, and in particular, this office, and extra credit if you can talk about, in particular, the subject matter area that you're interested in, right? If you're ranking environmental justice as your #1 placement, it would be great to hear about why that is in your statement of interest. Another question, and this is going to go to the Solicitor General Fellowship. So Jeremy or Angela, do you prefer persuasive or objective writing sample?
I prefer your best writing sample. If you're really like flip a coin, you know, we do more persuasive writing than objective writing, but you should pick your best writing sample.
Thank you. Are writing samples limited to briefs and memos, or can they be from sections of a law review article? They can absolutely be from a law review article, and I think we have some parameters in our website that describe like the level of editing that you know, should or should not be in place for a writing sample that you send to us. And there's also a length that you'll need to keep in mind as well.
John, in addition to the Q&As, there are some in the webinar chat as well.
Oh, thank you. Drag myself over there. Is the clerkship a necessary prerequisite to being eligible? No, you do not need to be a clerkship. If you're a third-year law student, then you are eligible to apply for the program. And we do have folks come in who did not have clerkships. I would never make it as a cut to this program, but I did not have a clerkship when I joined the office myself. Are there any restrictions on a deputy attorney general in terms of political involvement outside of work holding local elected office? That is an excellent question. The answer is yes. The New Jersey has a state ethics code that all state employees must abide by. And in addition to the state ethics code, individual departments, including ours, have their own ethics codes. And the Department of Law and Public Safety has some restrictions on political activity for employees in general, but those restrictions are heightened for those in attorney positions. So rather than try to summarize all of those restrictions in this chat, I will drop a link to the State Ethics Commission website, and you can pull up the ethics codes there which are publicly available to review what those restrictions might be. Is your application viewed differently if you only select a single subject matter area? Nope. We want your best application to kind of parrot what Jeremy was saying earlier about your brief. We want your best application. We want to hear about why it is that you are interested in public service and why it is that you are interested in this particular office. We receive over 150 applications each year, and you know, we brought in the largest class that we've had just a couple weeks ago at 19. So to give you some like point of reference as to the number of applications we receive, and being able to show us what makes your application unique is really going to help you. Is U.S. citizenship required? The answer is U.S. citizenship is not required, but you must be authorized to work in the United States. Are there preferred references such as law school professors? I think it's similar to some of the other questions we've received. You know, whatever you can best put forward to provide information and support for your candidacy, whether it's a law school professor or could be someone you work with at an internship or a clerkship. There's no hard and fast rule on that front. We have a question about criminal work and conviction review work. So happy to talk about that. We have in the subject matter areas for the 2025 program, a couple of areas that are in the criminal division. I won't go through each one. You can take a look at them on the website, but you know, ones that may be particularly of interest to folks get involved in the criminal world is our human trafficking section. We also have a violent crime suppression and organized crime unit with both within our Division of Criminal Justice. And you're acting as a prosecutor there. You know, you are, you know, other state AG, not all state AG offices have a criminal component like we do. So the closest analog for some folks may be like a district attorney's office. The difference here is, of course, this is like statewide jurisdiction and they're taking on statewide cases. But you'd be acting as a prosecutor, you'd be working with sworn law enforcement officers within our Division of Criminal Justice, as well as the New Jersey State Police and local law enforcement officers to, you know, help investigate and prosecute crime. On conviction review is housed within our Office of Public Integrity and Accountability. That's obviously a different flavor of criminal work. It's not prosecutorial work, but it is absolutely important and absolutely something that is complex and requires attorney work, investigative work, to review the many applications that we receive for conviction relief. So you can learn a little bit more on our website, and if you have some particular questions you want to ask about that, you can drop us a line on our honors program email account, and we can get you those answers. I have a question about if you had prior intern experience with the Division of Law, you're permitted to list the attorneys you work with as references. Absolutely, sure. That's a great way of kind of showcasing your interest in our office and interest in public service. We have a question about law clerks who are completing a second clerkship, if they're eligible to apply. Someone who completed a clerkship with a trial judge is now clerking for an appellate judge. The answer is yes, if you have kind of no break where you went to a private law firm, right? If you clerked for a bit and then went and made a whole bunch of money and then went back to clerk for an appellate judge, you are not eligible, unfortunately, to join the honors program. But if you kind of went straight through, then yes, you would be eligible. See if there's any other questions here. We also had a question about the Solicitor General Fellows. Jeremy, do you mind just re-upping how you guys have the fellow program structured?
Yeah, I should have been clear. Apologies. We hire one fellow per honors program cycle, meaning at any given time, we have someone in their first year as a fellow and someone in their second year as a fellow, but there's no requirement on whether you've clerked or not clerked for X number of years or whatnot. We just have someone doing the first year of their fellowship and someone doing the second year of their fellowship per class.
Thanks, Jeremy. What does the interview process look like? Great question. So the way that this is structured is we have a first round interview process is a panel interview, usually with 3 current attorneys in our office. Those typically happen virtually, and the second round interviews can be either virtual or in person, and those are typically with either senior leadership in a division or members of OAG, the AG's front office executive team. Are law students completing an LLM immediately after their JD permitted to apply? Yes, that would be acceptable. Federal staff attorney positions, question on eligibility. Would probably need to know a little bit more about that. We haven't encountered that particular circumstance before. So if you're able to drop us an email and I'll put the address in the chat, we can give you a more informed answer. Our interviews generally with attorneys from the specific sections that you're applying for. In the first round, they can be, but they're not always. In the second round, we do try to link people up with folks who have direct subject matter experience to the extent possible. Any other questions? Any other questions for our honors program panelists or for Jeremy or Angela? These guys know way more than I ever will. Yeah, not seeing any questions come in. We'll give it just maybe another couple of seconds before we let everybody go.
And thank you everyone for joining us on a Wednesday evening to learn more about the program. It's a good first step to getting involved in the honors program, and we appreciate you spending some time with us in an evening.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And I don't see any other questions come in, so I think we will call this to a wrap. Angela, Jeremy, Giancarlo, Emily, Sarah, thank you so much for being a part of the program today. Thanks to the EG. And thanks to Whitney for organizing this and making sure that everything was running correctly, as it always does. And thank you to all, as Jeremy said, for joining us today. We look forward to receiving your applications and also receiving any questions that you have. Thank you and have a good night.